I think my question is about, once I am in what you call the vortex, how does one stay there longer than what often seems to happen to me? It's like I go there and I understand it, but how do I stay there?
Well, our desire is that you not worry about staying there because you always know how to get back in. So then that takes the pressure off staying there, which makes it more likely that you will stay in longer. And the thing is, remember that you have come to explore contrast. So step one is an important part of this expansion that we are all about. And the solutions are all inside the vortex, but the questions are outside it.
Okay.
In other words, the solutions are inside, the problems are out, the answers are in, but the questions, in other words, when you realize that it's a 1, 2, 3 step process, then you don't feel bad when you're doing step one. The only thing that ever really goes wrong with physical experience, and it's not wrong, it just doesn't feel good, is that people don't understand about the vortex, or they don't understand that they have the ability to focus their mind, and so they don't. And so then they let circumstances get their attention, and then circumstances seem to perpetuate more and more and more and more of the same, where if you are in control, then you have your sea legs, and then adventure feels excellent to you. So we understand a question that goes something like, how can I stay in longer? How can I get in quicker and stay in longer? And we say, understand that it exists and want to feel good. And let your criteria for giving your attention to things not be if they're loud, or not be if they're popular, or let your criteria be, does it feel good when I ponder this? It's like Esther and Jerry will sit in the morning quite often for an hour or so and just visit about what's going on and where they're going. And it's interesting how frequently now one or the other of them will open the doorway to a conversation that they both realize right then is going to take them into a not good feeling place, and neither one of them want to go there. In other words, it's just not a topic for discussion. Why, of all of the possible good feeling topics, why pick one that doesn't feel good? So the answer is, we're not going to tell you how to always stay in, because we don't expect you to always stay in. But we do want you to have control of your relationship with the vortex. That's what's really fun. In other words, nothing is more exhilarating than to explore contrast and know what you don't want, which gives birth to what you do want. That's an exhilarating thing when you're in control. But it's not an exhilarating thing when you're not in control. That's the difference, you see. So ponder something that what we would really like to see you do is just not reach so far from the serenity and the well-being of your vortex that you ever feel you're running the risk of getting so far out that you'll be out for an unpleasant amount of time. But soon you'll reach the place where you'll be in such control about how you direct your thoughts that then you will be more willing to explore more diverse conversations, because you won't feel like you're running the risk of losing your connection. Here's another thing that we really think is at the heart of what you're reaching for. At least it's what we want to give you. And that is, consider getting tuned in. Before you go to sleep at night, appreciate. When you wake up, appreciate. Doing some focus wheels, making some lists of positive aspects, getting on some rampages of appreciation, and getting yourself in the vortex. So you're in there, and you feel good, you know it. It feels so good to be that alive. And then, let's say, you consider something by virtue of its introduction from something you're observing or remembering, and it pops you out of the vortex. And you consciously acknowledge it, and so you deliberately direct your thoughts and you move back in. Now, once you show yourself how flexible you are and how easy it is to be in alignment with who you are, you can actually get inside this vortex in alignment with Source and consider something that was formerly an out of the vortex experience. But from inside the vortex, from your place of confidence and true knowing, now you're considering it as we do. In other words, we visit with you all day, and you don't drag us out of the vortex because we so know the process, you see. And so then what happens is you reach the place where so you go in the vortex because it feels good to be there. For example, when you meditate and you stop resistance, which means you stop any resistant thought, you move right into the vortex. When you sleep at night, you move right into the vortex. So let's say you wake up and you're in the vortex, and then you remember what you were worried about yesterday, and it pops you out. But you want to be in, so you deliberately move back in. In time, you can have so much knowledge and so much confidence, so much understanding of who you are, of your absolute worthiness and power, that you could then explore formerly out of the vortex experiences from inside the vortex. You see what we're getting at? But you will never be in a place where you will not reach beyond where you now are. And for the most part, when you're reaching beyond, in other words, when contrast is causing you to reach beyond where you are, it's usually an out of the vortex experience, but that's all right. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Something more?
If I may, it's really about a word. A vortex, the word that you're using today, and that movement that you make it doesn't feel right, but maybe you can help me with that. Because that seems, if you think of a river with whirlpools and stuff, that's a place to avoid because you go down.
Well, the reason that for a while we were calling it, we've been offering different analogies to impart to you or to awaken within you your awareness of the power of who you are. So in the beginning we said, you are a powerful creator and you get what you think about, whether you want it or not. We said to you, if you have a desire and a belief that matches your desire, then it is. Then later we began describing to you that you are a powerful creator, and that as you explore contrast, the contrast helps you to know what you don't want, which helps you to know what you do want. And whenever that happens, a rocket of desire shoots out of you and is then held by the source within you. And as law of attraction then responds to that powerful new becoming, it creates a current that calls you to it. And so we began talking about this river or this stream in which you could drown, by the way, which is pulling you in the direction of what you are wanting. So then we began calling it the vibrational escrow, a place where everything that you want is set forth by you and held for you by the larger part of you in readiness for your alignment and receiving of it. But then we began describing how law of attraction is responding to this powerful part of you that has accumulated all that you've become. And law of attraction is also responding to the part of you that's in conversation in any moment in time. And we wanted to point out the two vibrational components that have a relationship with one another, and how your emotions reflect how that relationship is doing. If you close the gap, you feel better. If you widen the gap, you feel worse. So all in an effort to help you get the big picture of who you are. And then in a recent determination to help you feel the power of this amassing, we began describing it as this powerful vortex of creation where all cooperative components have already been gathered. And we agree with you. Every analogy has something about it that can throw you off if you try to make it literal. But if you can feel the power of this vortex and just let it be what it is. In other words, Jerry asked recently, this vortex is only what I want in this vortex? And we say, only what you want is in this vortex, because this is the non-physical holding place of all that you've been asking for. So are there other vortexes? Certainly. There's the vortex as you beat the drum of not enough money, or as you beat the drum of the government being screwy, or as you beat the drum of the global economic problems. In other words, there are vortexes all over the place. But this is the vortex. This is the vortex from which you came to begin with. This is the vortex where the source within you dwells. This is the vortex that has been eternally offering a vibration. And the vibration, the law of attraction's response to this vortex is so huge in response to anything else that the other vortexes aren't even worth mentioning, except that they are hindering you relative to this one, you see. So if you can get the sense that a vortex in and of itself, as we talk about the power of this vortex and you not being up to speed with it, we can see how it would be unsettling. Here's this vortex and you're not up to speed. What happens to you? We get it that you don't want to be caught in the maelstrom, but you're helping us then to clarify further by saying, if you are up to speed with the vortex, when you are in that vortex, you are rendezvousing with who you are and what you want, and there is no sensation of a chaotic, out of control vortex. It's like the airplane that's 50,000 feet in the sky and going 500 or 600 miles an hour. And you're in it, and you're looking across the landscape below, and all seems perfectly well. But put that same aircraft on the ground at that speed, and it doesn't feel so well. Well, so the speed of this vortex would be the same way if you're outside of it. But when you're up to speed with it, it lifts you, and it enlivens you, and it soothes you, and it feeds you, and it replenishes you, and it restores you, and it gives you everything that life has caused you to become. It's a good thing.
Yeah. That's very helpful.
So give it whatever name you want to.
Yeah.
We like the vortex because because it's a quick way to say it. I'm either in the vortex or I'm not, and I can tell. And another thing that's interesting is that you're setting the standard for your vortex. In other words, a child that is born who is pure positive energy is right up to speed with his own vortex. In other words, it's the vortex that existed prior to his coming forth, and he's in it. And occasionally someone will say, "You're inappropriate. Come over here and take your punishment." And little by little, children are dragged out of their vortex enough by the disapproval of others that in time there becomes this separation is too strong a word, but this hindrance to them staying significantly in the vortex. But that's not a bad thing, because you didn't come forth for a feathered nest or a feathered vortex. You came forth to create your vortex and then to keep up to speed with it. And that is the journey and the adventure that we are all seeking. In other words, how delicious it is to have life call us into a new place, and then recognize that we're not there, and then deliberately get there, and then watch the benefit of that deliberate thought. Yes. Does the vortex make it easier for you? Do you accept that there is a vortex? Do you accept that you have put wonderful things there? Do you accept that the larger part of you is there? Do you accept that the vibrational precursor to all that is there? Do you acknowledge that it is a reality, a vibrational reality? Do you acknowledge that everything that you know as manifested reality was a vibrational reality first? Do you acknowledge that the difference between having what you want or not having it is only a vibrational difference? If you can get there, then you can understand that in this moment you hold the power to whatever you are wanting. Do you think that you could create $1 million instantly? Usually not. Do you think that you could get into the vortex instantly? Usually not. Do you think that you could get into the vortex more easily than you could amass $1 million? You see, that's the point that we're wanting you to hear. You may not be able to instantly get into the vortex, although when you practice it, you will be able to get in anytime you want. And once you're at that place that you can get in there anytime you want, then that $1 million that seemed like an impossible thing will be a possible thing. In other words, the first questions that we ask you about the manifestation of things are contingent upon the second question we ask you about getting into the vortex. So if you can make your vibrational knowledge, your vibrational awareness, your top priority, so that you are tending to your vibrational position with the vortex, or your vibrational position with what you've been asking for, then you will easily weed out the resistant thoughts that have been hindering you and troubling you. And in the absence of those resistant thoughts, the manifestations will show themselves to you, and will show themselves to you fast.